This is Sandy Gabe, and we are here tonight to talk about setting up Google Workspace for your branch operations. As I mentioned, I'm Sandy Gabe. Many of you may have seen me before. I'm the past president for AAW California, and I am happy to be here this evening to talk about this topic. I am going to put in the chat a couple of pieces of information if I can find them. First of all, I'm going to put the registration for getting into tonight's session. If you have a friend who forgot to register, you can give them this information. And I also sent out the link to the document I'm using this evening as part of the reminder that went out an hour before the session started. So those things are in the chat session if you need it. So we are going to talk about what we're going to cover tonight is Google Workspace and how to set it up for your branch, creating and managing a user account, setting up email groups. In the document that I sent out, it said email aliases. We're not using that anymore. And the best practices for organizing and securing your branch's workspace. So I'm going to try to limit it to just a few things so that people can follow along. And Barbara, yes, chat is disabled. If you want to communicate, you need to use the Q&A function, and we'll take a look at that. So I'm going to pull this out here, and I'm going to do a poll because I would like to know what people's experiences are. So I'm going to poll you and ask you 3 questions. And Julika and Randy, you can be my eyes and let me know if this is showing. But the first question is, do you use Google Workspace for your branch?
It is showing.
Okay, thank you. The second question is, have you set up a Gmail account for your branch? And the third question is, have you set up Google Drive for your branch? Just trying to get a sense of what people have done already, so I know where to start. So it's looking like most people have not set up Google Workspace. I'll show the results in a moment. Let's see. We got 88%, 90%. Come on. Last 10%. Last 4 of you, 6 of you, please respond. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, I'm going to end the poll. All right, and I'm going to share the results. Looks like 79% of you have not set up Google Workspace. 69% of you have set up a Gmail account. That's impressive. And 49%, like half and half, have used Google Drive for your branch. Okay, that's really helpful for me to know. All right, so I am going to Randa and Julika, are you seeing the setting up Google Workspace for your branch?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So there are 2 different types of Google accounts that you can use for your branch. One is Google for Nonprofits, and the other is Google for Business. And Google for Nonprofits requires that you are registered with the IRS as a 501c3. So there was a question posed already in the chat about whether a 501c4 is adequate, and it's not. Now, they have recently added this, a group exemption organization with proven affiliation to a central nonprofit that has a 501c3 status. It's possible that you'll get away with that since the national organization is 501c3, but you're going to have to fill out a little survey and they're going to contact you and they're going to make that determination. But you can use the Google for Business component here. And I want to say that even though you might want to do the Google for nonprofit, it's not that expensive to get started, even if you can't do the Google for nonprofit. So most organizations need just this business starter, which is only $6 a month. So we're talking $72 a year. You are going to have to buy a Google domain, and it walks you through that process, and that's $12 a year. For a mere $84 a year, you can get the whole shebang. If you do it through nonprofit, obviously it's cheaper, but less than $100 a year is not that expensive. Okay, so the basics about Google Workspace. What are you going to get? You're going to get a Gmail account. We're going to walk through this in a minute. And you're going to set up your user ID as admin at whatever your domain name is. You're going to create groups that allow you to keep a consistent email on your website and materials, and you're going to redirect them in the background. We used to use at the state level, we used to use aliases. We have since changed our perspective on that because an alias, if you've done any Gmail stuff, requires the person who is the recipient of that email to accept that alias designation. And I had a lot of problems with folks who were just never responded to that. So we switched over to groups, and groups, they don't have to add that information. You also get Google Drive, and you get applications such as Slides, Sheets, and Docs. That's all part of the Google Suite. And I'm going to do a little bit of demo now on how that works. So if you have downloaded the document, you can go to Google for Business, which is here. And I'm going to do Get Started. Pretty easy. And you have to tell them who you are. So I'm going to say I'm Sandy Gabe, and my email address is, I know what my email address is. How many times have I done this? And is it going to let me start this again? Okay. So the first question that you're posed with is, do you have your own domain? The first thing you might think of is, well, I have a website and National hosts it. And yes, we have a domain through National, but you really want to have your own domain that you control. If you already own one, because you already have a website, there's several branches that have done their own website, you can do the use a domain you already own, or you can buy a new domain. This is a whole $12 a year, so it's relatively reasonably priced in order to do this. So I'm going to do something that is like my family name, Gabe family. And let's say that that's what I want to do. You would do your branch, right? You would do AAUW Mariposa. I can't do that because we already have one. But what it shows down here are the available options that are loosely based on what you put in. So Gabe family is unavailable, probably because I used it when I was testing the other day. But I could do gabefamily.com, gabefamily.com, and you'll see the different extensions, com.net, .org. So those are different options that you can use. .biz, gabefamilyapp.info. So you can choose one of these, and that will be the domain. So hopefully you could put in AAUW, your branch name, and then choose either com or net, and you would be able to pick one of these up. It tells you right now that it's $12 a year. So I'm going to choose this one just so that we can move forward. Wow, the domain that we want is available because we chose one that was available. So I'm going to go to next. Pam, no caps. It doesn't matter whether it's caps or lowercase. It's all the same. So they're just looking at the name of the domain. So you're going to put in your street address. So this, I know it can be challenging for branches where you don't have a physical presence anymore. I think San Jose is probably the only place that has a house or has a physical presence right now. But somebody in your organization needs to be responsible for this account. So I'm going to use my own address, okay? Because I'm the person who's filling it out. So you want to fill this out. And then my business phone number, I put in my cell phone number. So this is who owns the account, but it's different than who is going to manage the account. So we're just going to continue here and I'm going to say next. And how you'll sign in. So this is, if you look at on slide 7, nope, slide 6, sorry. On slide 6, I said set up the user ID as admin at your domain name. So you want this probably to be admin. And that just is easier because it's not identified with an individual person. It helps you just sort of genericize the process so that when you move on to something else, somebody else can take over it. So there's the admin, and this is the domain name that we gave it. So this would probably be your AAUW branch name. Okay, so once you choose that domain name, then it's going to be here. And then I'm going to put in a password. Okay, it's very secret, so I'm not going to share my password with you. And then we're going to agree to continue. It hasn't asked me for any money yet. I'm not going to do that yet, but it's going to get the startup going. Can you use a PO box, Laura? I think so. I don't think that there's any limitations on that. So Laura and Terry asked that. Okay, so so this is nothing to do with Google. This has to do with my tool that I use to manage my passwords because I have 8,000 of them. And so I use a tool called LastPass to keep track of them. I'm not going to add that right now, but it's going to ask me if I want to sign in. And so I'm going to say yes. Isabel asked, can you change the owner? What happens if the person moves away or passes on? Yes, you can change it. All right, so I'm going to log in here. Oops. Okay. Let's see. See if that works. Okay, so now it's going to, this one says, got a lot of unusual activity on the account. So I'm going to give it my telephone number. You know, you may or may not get this. I get this because I do a lot of demos and stuff. Okay, so it just sent to me to my cell phone, which you're not going to be able to see. It sent me a validation code. So this is going to go to your cell phone, the number that you put down there. And I'm going to add that number here. I don't think that's the whole number. Nope. 388. Oh, I guess it doesn't like the G part of it in the front.
Right.
Okay. Okay, so all this disclaimer stuff. All right, so you can definitely try for a period of time and you could compare plans. I was suggesting, oh, I guess their prices have changed. $7.20 instead of $6. But I would probably do a business starter. And if you look here, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so that you can see it. Because I can barely read it and I'm right here. So you get a certain amount of storage. So it goes from 30 gigabytes to 2 terabytes to 5 terabytes. You get your custom, these are the same. this Gemini app, which I haven't used. You get another 100 participant video meetings. We're using Zoom, so I don't really care about that. Yes, and the price, Carol, is per month. This is per month. Usually it's per month based on a yearly subscription. So modern collaboration apps, security and management controls, standard support. So what you get over here, no, yes, it is per user, Carol. You are only going to have one user. So then you get additional features over here, but generally the business starter is good enough for most people. And you could try it for 14 days for free. So that's a good way to start and see if you get what you need. All right, so not really sure that I want to do this since I have other accounts that I'm using, but you can see that it asks you your primary contact, your name and address, and that sort of thing. And then the big thing is your credit card number. And I don't actually want to do that because this is a demo. So I'm going to close this, but what I'm going to show you is where we go from here. So this is the pricing, and I took this the other day, so I don't know, maybe the 722 is if you do it by month instead of by year. So you have your Google account set up, and then the question is, what can you do with it? And so I want to share with you how you can use Google to help your branch operations. So if you think about, you have a Google account and you have an email now, and it's admin at something or other, your branch name. So you're going to log into that account and you want to create groups. And the groups correspond to your business operations. So Bev is asking, is a business starter limited to 1 year and do you have to increase in year 2? No. So the business starter, the 14 days are free, and then you get it for a year and you can continue that on for a year. Our local branch is still using the first $6 one. We haven't changed that at all because we don't have a lot of needs. So let me show you, I'm going to use a real life example here of a branch, and I'm going to log into, let me open up a new window, and I'm going to log into AAUW California, okay? And so AAUW California has an account. We have a domain. It is not what is used by National to host our website because we do our own, but we have an account. And when you log in, you have this 9 box will be kind of your friend. This is where the most common features of your account exist. So there's information under account that talks about the your personal information. So this one is site admin. We don't have a birthday. We don't have a gender really, but our contact information is site admin at AAUW, where you might just have admin. I'm on there. I'm sort of the backup person. And then there are addresses and profiles and stuff like that. But really what we want to look at now is a thing that's called groups. And I'm going to go flip over here to groups. Oops. Not the right one. Okay. So Google Groups. So groups allow you to send messages to multiple people. So when you set up a group, all members of the group receive a message. So you can have a couple of different kinds of groups. You can have groups that are related to a position, like president, finance officer, CFO, or you can have groups for things such as special interest groups or board groups. And you can have single or multiple members in those, and I'm going to show you that in a minute. So if you have special interest groups like book group or hiking group or great expectations or leadership team, you can set up a group like that. When people send a message to that group, all the people in that group receive the message, and then people can respond back to the message. The messages are archived in the group, so if you wanted to know what kind of communication has happened in that group, you can go back to the group and take a look at it. And the biggest thing is if you want to put a group address on your website or on your materials, you can do that, and then at the beginning of the year, you just change the people who are in the group. So let's say that today I'm the CFO, but on July 1st, Dawn is the CFO. So I change the group, and then whenever somebody sends a message to CFO, it goes to the right person. So let me show you an example of that. So here are our groups, and these are the groups that we use at AAUW California. And I thought this might be helpful as a real life example. So we have our leadership team. And so this is the AAUW leadership team. And on the left-hand side are the characteristics of that group. So we can look at the members of that group. So these are all the members in the group. So these are the board of directors, as well as some off-board chairs that are in this group. And whenever somebody sends a message to the AAUW California leadership team, everybody in this group sees that message. Okay? Anybody in this group who receives that message can reply to that message. So the first thing to know is there are members in a group. And it's very easy once you establish a group. So let's say that you wanted to establish a group named special interest group named book group or whatever. Once you do that, then you can add members to that group. So let's go back to our groups and let's add a group. So I'm going to create a group, and I'm going to say the group name is AAUW California peer group test group. Okay, just so that I can go find it later and delete it. Okay, so whatever you put in here is going to show up here as the group name. So sometimes it makes sense to make this briefer. Like maybe this is a really good group description, but maybe you want to do something. We do a nomenclature, which is the group name, and like peer groups, the group name and then peer group. But this is where once you create this, it becomes the group email. And this is documented in the presentation. It's on slide 8. So these are the characteristics that you want to change. So who can join the group? So you want anybody on the web to be able to join the group. And the reason I say that is anybody in the organization, you have to think about the organization is only the one person who is part of the organization that you set up. So you can have multiple users. Some organizations do multiple users. You have to pay for each of those users. What we're doing is saying admin is our main user, and then we're going to set up these groups. So we want anybody to be able to join, not just in the organization, not in my branch. And we're going to say anybody can join the group. And then who can view conversations? Anybody and anybody. Now, it may seem like you're really worried that anybody can look at this and you don't want people looking at your stuff. That we haven't had a problem. We've been doing this for several years at California. People are not out there generally looking to mess with your stuff. And then you get to put in your group members. So here I could put my name. So I'm going to put my name in, and you can put multiple names in here. So I'm going to put Dawn. I think Dawn's on. So Dawn, you're going to get an invite. I don't really mess with group managers or the owner. The owner is the person whose account it is. Just leave those blank. And then it's really nice to have a welcome message to say, you have been granted access to the, I don't remember what we called this, AAUW, blah, blah, blah group. And then the subscription information is helpful. And this is on slide 9 of what I sent you. There are different options. So you can have every email that comes in goes out to every member of the group. And this is variable by member. Or you can say a digest. And so a digest is up to 25 messages that get sent out all at one time. So if you've got a very active group, and let's say that I'm the president and I want to see all the messages that come in, I don't want to see every single email. I want to have them in a digest. The abridged is summaries of up to 150 messages. So this is just a difference of the number of messages that are in. And you can also say no email. For most people, if you're added to a group, you don't want to choose no email, but I'll show you a situation where that is helpful. So I'm going to say each email, and then I'm going to create the group. Okay. So there are 3 members because I added them, and I'm going to go to the group. So conversations are the email messages that go back and forth. There is the ability to moderate a group. For most situations, you don't need to moderate a group. We use moderation at California for people who send in newsletters that get posted. Because what we found out is that sometimes people add us to their general branch email. So we were getting all sorts of emails that had nothing to do with newsletters. And so Julica would get those, and then she'd say, oh, we don't really want that one because it doesn't have anything to do with an email or with a newsletter. Here is where the people are. So I added myself, I added Dawn, and here is site admin. So this is like your admin person who is part of every group. And let's say that I don't really want to get emails from everything that comes into this group. I just want Dawn and Sandy to get this. So I can turn myself off. So that's a situation where you might want to do no email. I don't use pending members, and I don't really do banned members unless you're starting to get spam, and that's a whole kind of different situation, but that's not normal. And then this last one is the group settings, and this is really helpful to look at. So remember we called it the AAUW California Peer Group Test Group. So this is really long. So you could do something like, you could shorten this to say AAUWCA Peer, oops, PB. And so that's going to change the name of it. And then these are very good things to take a look at. So the biggest thing is this used to default to no. If you want to check and make sure that your allow external members is set to yes, because that means, remember, the people who are in the organization is only the person who signed up for this. Everybody else is external to the organization. So you want to make sure that that's yes. And then you can set up moderation. I wouldn't mess with this, but most of the rest of the stuff you don't have to do anything with. So if you look at slide 9, you'll see that there's not very many things that we change. And then you can save the changes. Group settings could not be updated because I don't think I really changed anything. So if you log in and you look at your groups, you have all of these groups, and you'll see that no email is going to the owner, which is our site admin person. They're not getting any emails. But if you look at any of these groups, you'll see the messages. These are the conversations, and these are the members. So these go to 2 people, and that's how you set up your groups. So I'm going to pause for just a minute. I don't see any questions in the, let's see, open. I don't see any questions that are in the chat. Let's see. Okay, so if you have any, I'm just going to take a pause. If you have any questions about this, if you could put them in the Q&A, then I can answer them before we move on to the next section. Okay. Can't believe I've been clear as mud, you guys. I'm looking at our Google account for the branch, but don't see groups. Perhaps it was set up as an individual account. That's possible. I'm trying to think. If I go to my own, let me log in as myself. Do I have groups? No, I have groups. I can have groups. These are groups that I'm part of. So Cheryl, I'm not sure why you're not seeing groups, but if you log in to what that account is and go to groups, you should be able to see the groups there. Jean says, it seems like this could generate a lot of emails. Is there a way to communicate with, oops, Jean, oops, somebody's changing it. Is there a way to communicate with only one member of the group? No. It goes to the group or it doesn't go to the group. So if you want to send an individual email, you need to send that directly to the person. So Anne says, so I'm clear, anybody who can access the site can access the groups. Anybody who can access the site, they can't actually get in. You have to share the email. So typically what you're going to do, and let me share AAUW California. Let me share. So this is, let me share how this looks. So about us, so under California leadership. So here's an example of state president. State president, if I go back and look at my groups, let me go back to my groups. Under state president, we have a lot of groups, don't we? I look at state president and I look at members, it's Charmin. Okay, so they'd have to know who the group is. You are going to get spam. Google does a fairly good job of pulling that stuff out, but people can guess what those are. So yes, they could find it, but really you're going to be looking at something like this for people to know who to contact. Terry says, how do you change the site admin if somebody else needs to take over? You're going to go to personal information, a site admin. You're going to go to account, and you're going to go to personal information, and you're going to change the contact information here, Terry. You're going to change it, what the email address is, who this is, recovery email, contact email. This is where you would change it. Rosora, I thought that groups had been discontinued. Oh, no, they're definitely not discontinued. They're alive and well. We used to use a thing called aliases, and an alias is through Gmail. And just for those who might have used those in the past, if you go to your Gmail and you go to settings and you set up, see all settings, and you set up forwarding emails. Sorry, filters and block. So you can add in people who they actually have to accept that they're going to get an email. And I had so many problems with people not accepting it. Because they thought they were going to get all the email from AAW California, that I switched over to the groups. So groups is a better way, from my perspective, to connect with people. So you can have these different groups. How do you change this? Okay. Bev says, if I wanted a group of positions, will I be able to set up emails for each position, such as membership, where the personal emails do not have to be used on the website or materials? Yes. So, so Bev, what we've done here is we have the fund chair, we have, let's see, CFO, college and university contact. So these stay the same. And then every year, at the beginning of the year, we change who the members of that group are. So I hope that makes sense. So Charmin, as a president, is getting a digest of the emails that go to this group. And she's getting every single email. And so that's all happening behind the scenes. Okay. Looks like I've gotten all of those questions answered. Any more questions before we move on to Google Drive? Let's see. All right, looks like I've got them all. All right. So let's talk about Google Drive. So Google Drive, if I go to, so I'm logged in as site admin and I'm going to go to Drive. There are two different kinds of Drive, and this is on page 10 of your handout. There is My Drive, and there is shared drives. And there is a difference between the two. And we, at the state level, have just migrated this year from using My Drive primarily to using shared drives. And the difference between those features are, let's see if I can find that page. So when you have My Drive, the owner of the file is an individual. So if I post something as Sandy Gabe, I own that file. If I leave the organization, if I am no longer on the planet and my account gets terminated, AAUW California does not have any access to that file because I own it. Also, when we set up drives, we say who can access them. And the maintenance on who can access them on the My Drive is very complicated and is tedious. So whenever the end of the year was coming up and we had to change to the new year, I'd have to remove all the old people and add all the new people, and at multiple levels within the drive. Shared drive is what I recommend, and that has solved a lot of our problems. So the file owner is AAW, for AAW California. it isn't owned by Sandy, even though I might put a document there, it's owned by the organization. And so you can set up who has access to which files in the drive very easily. And the data belongs to AAUW California, not to me as an individual. There are a couple of exceptions, and I'm not sure why they have this set up this way, but forms that have file uploads can't be stored in a shared drive. And that's really probably the only limitation I've seen to using shared drives. And I'm not quite sure why that is, but if you try to create a form, and if you think about, for us at California, it might be a nominations and election forms where you need to upload your picture, or branch activity of the year awards where you need to upload documents. It won't let you do that in a shared drive. It'll tell you, you can't do this, but that's one of the challenges. But for everything else, it works pretty well. So let me show you how that works. And let me show you about the file structure. Let's talk about the file structure before I move over. So I think people frequently have challenges with, how do I set up my files? There are many, many ways to do this. And, you know, if you have 3 people in a group, there are going to be 4 or 5 different answers to this question. What I have found to be the most straightforward and easiest to understand is to set them up by function. So we first start at the state level with the committee. And then underneath that, we make a subfolder for each year. And then within the subfolder, we have topical folders that might relate to a program or a project or a budget or something like that. So think starting big and then getting smaller. And so let me show you what that looks like from our perspective. So here's our shared drive. And we have, let me make this a little bit bigger. Okay, so this is pretty good size. So we have some state stuff, like the leadership meeting materials, California policies and procedures, and basic administrative documents. So that happens at the state level. But at a committee level, we have one document or one folder for each committee. And then within that folder, we have different years. Double click. Okay. So these are the years. So you can see we've been going back for quite a while. So if I look at 24-25, which is the year that we are today, I have been working on videos. So these are the videos that the fellows have submitted. So I have a folder for that. And I did some work to send out letters to the videos, to the fellows. And then we get named gift recipients. Those are forms that come in. And then we've just got some individual documents that relate to 24-25. And every committee has that same process. So if I go over here, here are all of the committees. So when we transition, and you could do this at your branch level, you could say, I have a special interest group called whatever it is, wine tasting, great expectations, whatever it is. You could make a committee for that. You could make a folder for each committee. And then within that folder, you could make yearly folders. And then within the year, you could make different folders for the projects that are going on in that. Uh-oh. Did my voice go away, Miranda?
No,
Uh-oh.
it's fine.
Okay, sorry, it looks like my speaker turned out. So this is my recommendation for how to organize your folders within this structure. Who can make folders? The person who can make folders is the owner of the organization. So whoever your admin person is can make the folders. Once you get the folder created, then people can make folders underneath it. But one of the very important things is it used to be when you do Drive versus shared Drive, you had to put in all of the individual people. If I look at, let's look at fund, you can see that it's been shared or given access to 3 different groups. So our leadership team has access to it. You can see all the people in the leadership team. The fund committee has access to it, and the communications team has access to it. So at the end of the year, when you're changing people who are in a committee, if you change the leadership team or you change the fund committee, you don't have to do anything here. It automatically changes who has access to this folder, which is saved me an amazing amount of time. Because it used to be that you had to do that at each individual folder. And then if you had subfolders like this, they weren't really good about cascading down. And it was just a lot of work to maintain that. But admin has to do the work. Yes, Jean, somebody has to be in charge. So you're absolutely right. So somebody within your branch knows who the leadership team is and knows who should be in those groups. And yes, they have to do the work in order to make this happen, which is, a small price to pay to get the right people to have access to the right information. So let's say that you have created these folders. The next question is, how do people know what folders they have access to? So the easiest thing is I'm going to right click on this and I'm going to share the drive settings. Oh, Leslie, you're like in my head. That's what I'm going to talk about. How do you grant access? So you're going to say share drive settings. So the drive settings, so you want to allow people outside of your organization to access the files, because remember, there's only really one person in your organization. And you're going to allow people who aren't shared drive members to access files, and you're going to allow people to share the files. But let's see, I'm going to go here. Come on. Okay. So I have shared this with the leadership team, the fund committee, and communications. But let's say that I have somebody else or another group. You type it in here. So let's say that I'm going to share it with myself, which I don't really want to do. And then it allows you to notify people, and you can put a message in like, you have been granted access to blah, 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 and what their rights are. So these are the different things. A commenter can't really do much of anything. A contributor can add and edit files, but a content manager can move things around, and then a manager can add content people and settings. What I have found since we went to this format is I have not had to do this at all, with one exception. And that is when we are getting files from our fund fellows. They are not part of our organization, and I didn't add them as users to that. So I did have to add them individually because they're not part of any group that we have. So that's been the only place that I've had to individually add people to the drive. Okay. So you create a folder, you create subfolders underneath it, you share at the very top level, who should be able to access that folder. So the big question that frequently comes up is how do I find things? And I think this is a challenge. In some respects, Google is so good at kind of masking and making things simple that sometimes you just don't know where to look. So here are a couple of tips. So I've been working with Mary Isaac on the MOU for Tech Truck. But I don't know where it is. I'm assuming it's under Tech Truck and I could probably look under Tech Truck and find it. But what I really want to do is say, I'm looking for all things that are MOU. And if I just type in MOU up here, it tells me these are the most common things and the most frequent, most recent things that I've done. So I have the Tech Truck MOU, and and this thing means that it's a form. This is the document that we've been working on. This is where the answers are going to go. So I can find it that way. You can also filter and you can say, okay, I only want to look for forms and I want to look for the owner. A lot of times we remember who shared it with us, but we don't necessarily remember the name of it. So you could say, I want to say anybody or a specific person, and I want to say Mary. I don't know if it'll find it because I don't know how she loaded it. And then say search. No matching results. So the more specific you make it, the sort of less likely you're going to be able to find it. But I could look at MOUs and I could clear this stuff out. I can reset. And let's say I'm just looking for forms that have MOU in them. Okay. So these are all the forms that have, these are all the things that have MOU in it. Okay, that's probably the challenging part is trying to find things. The other thing that you can do is you can look at shared with me. So if somebody has shared a document with you and you don't remember the name, you can do shared with me. And oh, look, there's stuff from Mary. Okay, so I can look here and see what has been shared with me. The other thing is, what have I done recently? Okay, so I worked on this document, setting up the workspace. I also looked at the template because I made a copy of that. I was looking at the MOU document. So this is another way to try to find things. I think that's one of the biggest issues that people have is they can't find things. For any document, you can star it. You can do some things to organize it. You can, where's my star? Where's my star? Let me go here. Should be able to star it, share, organize, add to start. So I put a star on that and you can see that little star here. Now if I look at my starred documents, it's going to show up in here somewhere. You can organize things by clicking on a column. So if I want to do it by name, this is by name right now. If I wanted to do it by owner, go baby, or last modified, file size. So you can, kind of or reorganize things. You can also look at it in this direction where it's a list, or you can look at it in this direction. This direction has some benefits from the perspective of you can kind of see what it looks like. So if you don't really remember what it is, but you recognize it, you can pull that out. So I'm going to pause for a minute and see. Rosario is going to leave. Thank you. So what questions do you guys have about Google Drive? I'm going to take a pause here and give you an opportunity to enter new questions. How much drive space do you recommend? Well, it comes with a certain amount, and that's just part of the package. And then you buy more if you get close to the end. So it's hard to say what you should use. Do you do you have a send protocol for naming, set protocol, I think you mean, Jean, for naming files? Um, it's a really great question. It really, yes and no. Um, I personally tend to name them in something that will help me search for them. So like you can see speech track. So if I'm doing a speech track document, I tend to put speech track into the title. I tend to put a year and I tend to put what it's about so that if I'm searching, I have a better chance of finding it, even though it's actually going to look within the document to see those terms, but it's helpful. It's more likely to show up if it's in the title. Okay, let's see what else we have here. What info will we get to help us remember your advice? Well, you have the presentation, so you can download the presentation or save that, Martha. If somebody changes a file I created, can I recover my original version? Excellent question. That does happen sometimes where somebody has changed the document that you're working on. And so let's see, I don't want to out anybody here. Can I find one? Well, let's see. I don't know. Software. No, that's not going to do it. Let me think about what would be a good one. So I'm going to open a document here. And let's say this is a really old document. But let's say that I wanted to see the history of this document because I think somebody changed it and I'm not really sure. So if you go up to help and you say history, I'm going to go here and I'm going to say history. Oh, I think our policies and procedures would be a great one. So there's only one on here, but if you might see a previous version here and you can go back to the original version or to a previous version so that yes, you can recover if somebody changes it. Laura, what would you say are the primary benefits of doing Google Workspace versus an individual branch Google Workspace versus just doing an individual but branch managed email? So Google Workspace and email are very different things. Google Workspace allows you to create and to do file folders, and to send out emails and groups. If you have, so one of the challenges when you have a group is that so Sandy thinks that there are 5 people in the group and Dawn thinks there are 6 people in the group and there are really 7 people in the group. And if I use the group email, I'm going to get all 7 people. If I use mine, I'm going to get the number that I think, and Dawn's going to get the number that she thinks, and they may or may not be the same. So one of the benefits is consistency, so that as an organization, you set up the people who are supposed to be in the group, and then if everybody uses the group, everybody gets the email. And we see this a lot where somebody kind of cherry picks off and sends it to just a part of the group, and then other people are wondering, well, why didn't I get that message? Because somebody just typed in who they thought was in the group. Cheryl, do shared drives come with the business account? Yes, shared drives are part of the business account. And is there security issues, banking info? So, I guess in terms of banking info, I wouldn't put banking info in here unless I did a document we have a document at California that is a list of our user IDs and only 3 people have access to that document. So it's not open for everybody. So yes, there are issues. you have to think about that. And if I look at the shared drives, I'll show you a couple of examples that we have. So Tech Trek has limited access groups. So this group, even though they have Tech Trek, they have limited access. So this is just the leadership on essentially sensitive documents. So you can set that up based on the folder, and you kind of need to think that through ahead of time. Let's see, Carol, do you know the nonprofit price? No, nonprofit price is free. It's just that you have to have a 501c3 and you have to jump through the hoops to get that. So I hope that answers your question, Carol. Right. So, no more questions? All right, I'm going to give you a couple more minutes to ask questions. Bev, thank you. Set up a Google Workspace a year ago. No clue how to get the most from it, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so Bev has to leave. Pam, protocol, consider putting year, month, day in the topic. I found that puts things in a date order rather than a month of multiple years. Yeah, there are lots of different ways of organizing. And if you look online at file structures, there are actually even a couple of add-ons to Google to help you organize your files. So yes, I think the challenge is the way that I think about organizing and the way that you think about organizing and the way that person C thinks about organizing may be completely different. And so what I might call something, you might not call it. So it becomes a challenge. And I think if you can describe how you're organizing, like this is pretty clear, our public policy, all the public policy documents are going to be here, and all the ones for this year are going for 2024 are going to be here. And within that, you can usually find what you're looking for. All right. Okay. All right. It looks like people are starting to sign off. So this is kind of amazing because usually I provide too much information. Everybody's like, oh my gosh, it's too much. So maybe we got it at the right level here. If you have any more questions, go ahead. I'll stay on for a couple more minutes. Questions will arrive as soon as I try it out. Yeah. Okay, Pam. Yes, Pamela, you can send me questions if you want to. Once you try it, I'm sure you'll have questions, and you guys know how to get a hold of me. Just send them my way and I will do my best to answer them. All right, it's a lot to digest. I know it is a lot to digest. Absolutely. So our next session, I should say, is in January, February, March, I believe, and it's going to be about, I think it's about Canva. But let's see. Do you remember how to find where we are? And where you're going to find these materials? So I'm going to go to AUW, and I'm going to go to Branch Tools, and I'm going to go to Peer Groups. And I'm going to go to communications. And so we had our December 3rd meeting, and then this is our January 9th meeting, and I'll put the video up here when we're done. The next one, managing Google. Ooh, I've already done this. Might have to change that topic. The one after that is getting started with Canva. So that'll be the next main topic that we'll do. But this is where you can find out where they are. What about photos? Easy to download. Yes. So, let me think. Tech Trek has videos or has images on here. So I'm going to go to Tech Trek, and I'm going to go to Tech Trek pictures, and I'm just going to go to, okay. So if I were to look at this image, and if I right click and say download, is going to download to my download folder. And let me open up my download folder so you can see. So you can see it's coming up here. But if I go to my download folder, that image, based on what it was named. So this is image 3738. That is the Tech Trek image that was there. So it's very easy to download images. Can I download an album from Google Photos? Good question. You can go to, so that is one of the, if you go to Photos, you can go to Photos. So we have photos, you have to have the photo album set up. Not everybody uses photos, but let's say that this is from, so at the state level, we're not using this. Tech Truck is using a different way. But let's say that we can go to albums. There's albums. And here are albums. This is AAUW, and this is, so I am a member of the Mariposa branch, and so I have access to that. So these are all the photos in the Mariposa branch. So I can download these guys here. I think hopefully that answers your question, Patricia. Right. So many tools, aren't there? So many ways of getting things done. And then when you log in, you have all of these other things. So I guess one of the things I should share with you is you can look at Drive, but you can also just look at Sheets or Slides or Docs. And these are just filtering for only Sheets. So you can go to Drive and filter for Sheets, or you can go to the function for Sheets and look there. Photos will eat up your space. Yes. Photos will eat up your space. Absolutely. Because they're depending on the size that you're doing. How to download. Okay, so I just right clicked on it and I say save image as or copy link as. So here I clicked on it and I'm going to say download. So Patricia, I hope that helps. You can go to download and then it's going to go into my downloads folder. And I'm going to bring that over here. So we downloaded the Tech Truck one before, and then this is the one that I just downloaded. And Google's really good about telling you, oh, you're running out of space. You need to have more space. And at that point, you have the option, do I want to delete things or do I want to add more space? I haven't found it to be outrageously expensive to add more space. Okay, looks like we're just about done with questions. So this is your opportunity for your last questions. Anything you're just burning to ask, whether it has to do with Google or doesn't have to do with Google. I can take them. Perhaps another topic, archiving files. So archiving is an interesting term. Archiving suggests that they go someplace. But really your documents here, if you go to Drive, we have a lot of documents that I would consider sort of archived. So let's look at fund. So we have 24, 25. These are old, right? So you could consider them to be archived. If you wanted to save them off someplace, you would download them and save them to a different media. So like put them on a DVD drive or something like that. My suggestion is you buy more storage and you clean out what you don't really need. How long should branches keep files? Ooh, Isabel. So I just saw an email from Julica. Julica, do you want to address that? You have a very good answer for
Um,
that question.
well, we have a process in place, and there is from National a document retention um, document, and it gives you some guidelines, and then a couple of other things that we do in terms of document retention. There's some things you want to keep in perpetuity, but most of the stuff you have to decide, and I think there's policies and procedures around how long do you want to keep banking information, tax information, membership information. We keep ours in a storage room, and then you have to mark when you want that destroyed. But minutes and things like that, we keep in perpetuity. And we save them we protect them by using acid-free paper and acid-free folders and binders and things. But there is a document retention instruction from National. It's still pretty good. So if you'd like a copy of that, just contact the office at AEUW-CA, and I'll go ahead and send you a copy.
Can you put that in maybe the chat, Julica?
I'd have to,
If you have it. If
yeah,
not, then
I have it in my personal files. I don't know if it's out there on Google. It probably is out there on Google. I'd have to find it. But
okay.
yeah, it's better if you just contact me and I'll send it out.
Okay.
And maybe
So
we can
Laura
attach it.
asks, can you buy more storage without updating to the next level of business? Yes, you can. They'll just say, you want to pay more money to have more storage? It's pretty easy. They'll let you know when you get close to the storage. And again, I would look at, do we want to get rid of some of the stuff that we have? Think about it as spring cleaning. So easy to just put the stuff out there forever and ever. And maybe you don't need to do that. All right. Well, I'm not seeing a lot of questions here. Looks like we've answered all of them. So I'm going to say thank you guys. And it looks like since I went over Google Drive that I need to come up with the new topic for March or move the Canva one up to March. So I'll be sending out something that discusses that after this session. All right, we have a large file of photos. Let's see. Laura says we have a large file of photos of all of our scrapbooks from 50 years. Yeah, I guess you should also decide whether you need to put that on Google Drive or not, whether that's beneficial to do that or just have it someplace on a CD. Donna says, as a finance director for my branch, keep all records for 7 years plus the current year. Yep. Michelle says, okay, thank you. Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to let you guys go. I'm going to stop sharing. And I want to say thank you to Randa and Julica who were in the background clearing out the questions as we went through them. So thank you guys very much. And I appreciate everybody's participation. And we'll see you in March. All right. Bye.